Today we're going to talk about solving two-step and multi-step equations. One of the things that you need to keep in mind whenever you're solving an equation is do any addition or subtraction first. That's very important. It's not wrong to do division and multiplication first, but it can often result in something quite messy. Usually, if you stick to doing your addition or subtraction first, it will be a much cleaner and easier problem to do. So let's start this out. We have negative 4 plus 7x equals 3. We want to get x alone. Well, the 7's multiplying the x, so we don't want to touch that yet. We want to take care of this negative 4, because the way we would get rid of the negative 4 is we would add 4 to each side. See, we're doing the addition first. The 4's will cancel, and we have 7x equals 7. Well, the 7's multiplying the x, so the opposite of multiplying by 7 is dividing by 7. And we get that x equals 1. Now let's check this. So we have negative 4 plus 7x equals 3. We want to plug in our 1 in place of the x. So we have negative 4 plus 7 times 1, and we want to know if that equals 3. Well, 7 times 1 is 7, plus negative 4 does indeed equal 3. So that checked. Now we're not going to check all of the problems. In fact, I'm going to leave most of them for you to do. But that is how we check our answers. So next we have 1.5 equals 1.2y minus 5.7. Draw our line. We want to get y alone. Do any addition and subtraction first. 5.7 is being subtracted, so the opposite is adding 5.7 to each side. If we do that, the 5.7's cancel, and on the right we're left with 1.2y. On the left we have 1.5 plus 5.7, which gives us 7.2. We want to get y alone now. 1.2 is multiplying the y, so divide everything by 1.2. That's the opposite. The 1.2's cancel, and you have y is equal to 7.2 divided by 1.2 is 6. I'm going to have you check that on your own. Next problem, we have n over 7 plus 2 equals 2. We want to get n by itself, do it any addition or subtraction first. The 2 is being added, so let's do the opposite and subtract 2. 2's on the left cancel, and we have n over 7. On the right, actually they do cancel, but we need a number there, so 2 minus 2 is 0. We want to get n alone. N is being divided by 7. The opposite of dividing by 7 is multiplying by 7, so we do that on both sides. The 7's on the left cancel. 7 times 0 is 0, so we have n equals 0. I'm going to have you do the next two on your own. Try those, and let's move on. We have 2x over 5 minus 1/2 equals 5. So we want to get x alone, do any addition and subtraction first. We're going to start by adding 1/2 to each side. The 1/2's cancel. We have 2x over 5 equals, well, 5 plus 1/2. I'm going to keep this as an improper fraction, so I do want to change the 5 to something that has a 2 in the denominator. And so remember, 5 over 1 is the same as 10 over 2. So I've really got 10 over 2 plus 1/2, which will give me 11/2. Now, 2x over 5 is the same as having 2/5 x. I think we talked about that in the last video. And the way we get rid of the 2/5 in front of the x is to multiply by its reciprocal. So the 5's cancel, the 2's cancel. And we end up with nothing can cancel out on the right-hand side. So 11 times 5 is 55. 2 times 2 is 4. So we end up with 55 over 4. And you're welcome to just leave that as an improper fraction. That's perfectly okay. Let's try the next one. We have 3/4 u plus 1/2 equals 7/8. We want to get u alone. So we're going to subtract 1/2 from each side. The 1/2s cancel. And we do need to change the 1/2 so it has a denominator of 8, just like the 7/8 up above it. Well, and the way we write 1/2 with an 8 in the denominator is as 4/8. So 7/8 minus 4/8 gives us 3/8. On the left-hand side, we have 3/4 u equals 3/8. We want to get u alone. The 3/4 is multiplying by it. So the way we get rid of the 3/4 is we multiply by the reciprocal. Remember, when you divide by 3/4, you multiply by its reciprocal. So we have to do that on both sides. We're multiplying by 4/3 on both sides. The 4's cancel, the 3's cancel, and you're left with u on the left. The 3's cancel on the right. And the 4 and the 8. 4 goes into 4 once, it goes into 8 twice. If we multiply right across, 1 times 1 is 1, and 2 times 1 is 2. So u equals 1/2. I'd like you to try the next problem on your own. Next one, we have 2a plus 3 minus 8a equals 8. Now, this one's a little bit different. I'm going to draw a line down through the equal sign. Notice we have like terms that we can combine. Always, always combine like terms if you can, if they're on the same side in the equation before you start solving it. So let's do that. 2a minus 8a gives us negative 6a plus 3 equals 8. We want to get a alone. So now we're back to solving, just like we were before. The opposite of adding 3 is subtracting 3. Do the addition and subtraction first. 3's cancel, so we're left with negative 6a equals 5. We want to get a alone. It's being multiplied by negative 6, so we're going to divide everything by negative 6. The negative 6's cancel, and we're left with a equals negative 5/6. Next, we have some problems involving parentheses, and we really want to get rid of any parentheses first before we start solving. And so we're going to go ahead and do that. Now, we've learned how to use the distributive property, so let's use that to eliminate the parentheses. So this first one, we're going to take negative 2 and multiply it through the parentheses. So negative 2 times 3 is negative 6. And negative 2, this is like having a 1 in front of the d. Negative 2 times negative 1d, take the sign in front of the 1, gives you positive 2d, which equals 4. We want to get d alone, so we want to do all addition and subtraction first. Notice the 2's multiplying the d, so we don't want to do anything with that, but let's get rid of the negative 6, which we can do by adding 6 to each side. The 6's cancel, and we have 2d equals 10. Now we want to get d alone, which we can do by dividing each side by 2, so d equals 5. Let's move on to the next problem. 4 times, in parentheses, x minus 2 plus 2x equals 40. We want to get rid of the parentheses, so we'll use the distributive property. So 4 times x gives us 4x. 4 times negative 2 gives us negative 8. And then we have plus 2x equals 40. Let's go ahead and try to do something about these like terms. Notice if I draw a line down through the middle, I have x's on the same side, so let's combine them. 4x plus 2x is 6x. And then we have minus 8 equals 40. We want to isolate the x, get it alone, so we want to do any addition and subtraction that we can. we have a problem where we're subtracting 8, so let's do the opposite and add 8 to both sides. The 8's will cancel, and we have 6x equals 48. We want to get rid of the 6 in front of the x, so we're going to divide each side by it. We end up with x equals 8. Let's move on to the next page. Here's a word problem. Jan joined the dining club at the local cafe for a fee of $29.95. Being a member entitles her to save $2.50 every time she buys lunch. So far, Jan calculates that she has saved a total of $12.55 by joining the club. Write and solve an equation to find out how many times Jan has eaten lunch at the cafe. So, let's go ahead and see if we can set up an equation for this. We know that she saves $2.50 every time she eats lunch. So let's have x stand for the number of lunches that she has had. Well, $2.50 times x would tell you how much money she's getting back. But remember, she had to pay $29.95 up front. So we need to take that away from the amount of money she's gotten back so far, because you have to consider that it cost her $29.95 to get into the club. And she still has a savings of $12.55. So all of that would be equal to $12.55. Now what we want to do is solve this equation for x to find out how many times she's eaten lunch there. Well, let's do addition or subtraction first. The opposite of subtracting $29.95 is adding $29.95, which we'll do to each side. $29.95's cancel, and we have 250x equals $42.50. We want to get x alone, so we're going to divide everything by $2.50. 250's cancel, so I have x is equal to 17 lunches. She's eaten lunch 17 times to be able to get a total of $12.55 back. Okay, so now this is a little bit different problem. We're really doing two problems in one here. It says if 4a plus 0.2 equals 5, find the value of a minus 1. What we're going to do is we're going to start off solving that equation. 4a plus 0.2 equals 5. So we want to solve it for a. And what we're going to have to do is start by subtracting 0.2 from each side. So the 0.2's cancel, and we're left with 4a equals 4.8. We want to get a alone, so we're going to have to divide everything by 4. And we end up with a is equal to 1.2. So we've got our answer for a. But now we want to substitute that answer into this expression, a minus 1. Because that's ultimately what you're being asked to do. So we have 1.2 minus 1, which gives us 0.2, and that is the final answer. All right? And what I'd like you to do is to try this last problem, and we can discuss that in class. Thank you very much for joining me.